Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for joining us for this board meeting of the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, December 21st, 2017 meeting. And I am so excited to be here in Hammond this morning and want to thank Mayor Tom McDermott for joining us today. Is the mayor here? Not yet. Okay. Well, we will come back because we do want to hear from the mayor. But I'd like to thank Mark Laubacker, the owner and developer of Silver Birch, for having us here this morning. I'd also like to thank Nisa Stewart, the property administrator here at Silver Birch, for hosting us this morning. And Mark and Nisa, would you all care to make a few remarks?
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Dave Cocaine. I'm the chairman of Silver Birch Living. We're delighted to have you here. This is the first of 8 communities that combine affordable housing and assisted living that we've developed in Indiana, which represents about $180 million investment over 2 years in the state. That's important to know because, as you might imagine, 8 communities, $180 million of investment. We've worked a lot with Jacob and his team. And as you might imagine, there are some challenges and obstacles that you encounter along the way. And we've always been met with graciousness, creativity, and flexibility from the IHCDA staff and board as we've sought to make this investment in Indiana. Equally important are the lives that we're changing here at Silver Birch. And rather than my expounding upon that, I just want to read you a quick testimonial from a resident, because I think you'll find it quite moving, particularly in the season of giving and hope. A 50-year Hammond resident moved in. He had been diagnosed with heart failure. His last 4 years, he'd been confined to an apartment on the 3rd floor of a rundown building. He literally couldn't get up and down the stairs of his apartment. So when visitors would come, he would have to throw the keys out the window for them to be able to get into the building. He would often look out the window and cry when he would see people walking outside on the street. He stated, "I have been praying to God for the opportunity to go outside, look up in the sky, take a deep breath, and take a walk around the block." During our conversations, he would say, "Mrs. Stewart, that's Nasa. You and Nikia are like angels sent from God, and you all came to my apartment to complete my application for Silver Birch. I was so happy to throw the keys out of my window so you all could come up and assist me. Silver Birch has saved my life and changed my life tremendously. I feel like I have been born again." So this is what you have been a part of. Thank you very much. Welcome to our community.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Nasa Stewart. I'm the community administrator. I just want to thank you all. It is such a privilege to be able to hold the board meeting here. And I would hope that all of you get an opportunity to take a tour of our lovely building. We love to show it off. And also the testimony that Dave just gave, the current resident is here, and that is Mr. Sellers.
Oh.
And it's a great privilege just for him and his family to allow us to care for him. So welcome to Silver Birch. Our home is your home. Please stick around, take tours. We'll have some lunch available also. Thank you.
Mr. Salas, would you care to make any comments? Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here at Silver Birch. You know, it was like a prayer come true, like a miracle. Because I was, I felt like I was stuck in a prison, and no way out, nobody coming to see how I'm doing or whatever until the nurses, started coming and the doctors. I had to throw my key out the window to let them in and stuff. And like Miss Nasa said, I used to sit in the window, and see people walking and riding their cars by, and I just started tearing up, wishing I could do the same, and this made it possible for me, to get out, and walk, and so I really appreciate Silver Birch more than anything and anybody, and I thank you.
You're welcome. Merry Christmas. Is the mayor?
Not yet.
All right. Well, General Counsel, is there a quorum?
Madam Chair, I think we have one more person.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're not going to? Yes, you do have a quorum.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you. I will call to order the December 21st meeting of the Indiana Housing Community and Development Authority Board of Directors. And if we would start, we'd like to first welcome June Midkiff, our newest member. Welcome. And if we can start and introduce ourselves to the audience and to those people that are actually watching us live streaming. So, June.
I'm June Midkiff, and this is my first meeting, so I'm very happy to be here and look forward to touring the facility here.
I'm Andy Place. I'm a builder developer from the South Bend area.
I'm Jeff Whiteside. I work for Vectron Corporation.
My name's Jacob Sipe. I'm the Executive Director at the Indiana Housing Community Development Authority.
Suzanne Crouch, Lieutenant Governor.
I'm Rebecca Casper. I'm General Counsel to the Lieutenant Governor.
Kelly Mitchell, Treasurer of State for Indiana.
Mark Pascrella, Director of Debt Management, Indiana Finance Authority.
Tina Robinson, Paralegal and Board Secretary.
Wonderful. Well, the first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our November 16, 2017 meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? And if
Motion to approve.
it's been moved,
Second.
seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And please welcome Peter Nelson to discuss a recommendation regarding bond volume 4% credits for the lakes at Crossbridge. Peter,
Good morning, Board.
good morning.
Welcome to our newest member. For your benefit, IHCDA is the allocating agency for tax-exempt bonds and the Internal Revenue Service Section 42 low-income housing tax credits. I am here today to recommend bond volume and 4% credits for the Lakes at Crossbridge project on the east side of Indianapolis. This project represents the 22nd application and that IHCDA has received and reviewed for credits this year. It represents a total development cost of $20,415,594, requesting $14,120,000 in bond volume and $704,150 in LIHTC annually for 10 years to preserve 252 units of affordable housing. So the Lakes at Crossbridge is a Herman and Kittle Properties project. The project is currently known as Farmington Lakes on the east side of Indianapolis. It is a current tax credit project that they are proposing to rehab for the residents. The project contains 1 and 2 bedroom units. The scope of the rehabilitation is going to include upgrades to the units, to the buildings, amenities, safety features for the common spaces outside, and updates to the community space. The development is adjacent to a couple of bus stops and within walking distance to a large number of amenities. There's actually a Walmart, one of the smaller neighborhood center Walmarts across the street, and they have a partnership where the residents can bring their carts directly from the Walmart onto the property, and then people from Walmart will come and get the carts in the evening and return them to the store. So that's a good partnership that they have, and that'll continue with the residents. During this round, the real estate staff reviewed the application to ensure it met the criteria set forth in our 2018-2019 qualified allocation plan. And the development team was able to meet with real estate and executive staff on December 7th to present their project. With that, staff is recommending the full allocation of the bond volume and tax credits that I had mentioned. At this time, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Peter?
Is the project occupied now?
It is occupied. It's, I don't have the exact occupancy, but I believe it's somewhere in the 90s. They do have a relocation plan to kind of rehab one building at a time and kind of move tenants along. They will have like a relocation specialist to kind of help tenants with that move.
Okay. All right.
Any additional questions? Yes.
And maybe you don't know this, but I'm assuming because it's 1 and 2 bedrooms that the size of families that are able to live there is limited. Do you know what the size of the family can be to live in one of these apartments?
Typically, the range for a 1 or 2 bedroom is considered like 1.5 people per bedroom. I don't know if there's any specific set limits. The program doesn't require that.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't require a certain set, but sometimes management can put that. I'm not aware if they do currently, but yeah. And that's sometimes a struggle with some of these preservation projects, as you're working with what you have available. So you may want a larger family size, but it is important to preserve these units. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Any additional questions? If not, I believe we're ready for your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve awarding $14,120,000 in bond volume and $704,150 in annual LIHTC to the Lakes at Crossbridge LP for Lakes at Crossbridge according to the terms of the 2017 AB application round as recommended by staff.
Board, we have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And please welcome Alan Rakowski to discuss a recommendation regarding the 2017 Rental Housing Tax Credit General Set Aside for Moving Forward 2.0.
Good morning, thank you. I'm Alan Rakowski, the Rental Housing Tax Credit Manager, and today to present to you 2 projects through the Moving Forward 2.0 program. So by way of background, I'll get into a little bit as to what that is exactly. I know that Jake's given regular updates on the first iteration of Moving Forward, so this is the phase 2 of that. So pursuant to the 2016-17 QAP, 10% of the credits were set aside for projects that would further IHCDA's missions, initiatives, and goals outside of the evaluation factors. So it's 2 projects that would not have to go through the main competitive round. 10% of the credits each year are reserved for projects that meet special initiatives. So this is the second year that we've done this. We've designated the 10% general set aside to Moving Forward, we're calling 2.0. On May 27th of 2016, we released the RFQ announcing that we would do this, that the innovative developments that combine affordable housing with transportation opportunities and energy efficient design would be eligible to compete or to apply through the Moving Forward 2.0 program. So the purpose was similar to the very first Moving Forward. The purpose is to create housing that increases quality of life while decreasing the cost of living for low to moderate income individuals and families. As I mentioned, we modeled this after the original Moving Forward program, but Moving Forward 2.0 added a category that would be dedicated to developing and implementing long-term strategies to break the cycle of generational poverty. So after going through the first phase of Moving Forward, it became evident that we're missing a piece, especially when in the workshop for the first Moving Forward program. We felt as if we needed to bring another expert to the table, not being someone that has more expertise in overcoming generational poverty. So with this, the lead applicant was required to be a community action agency. In Indiana, community action agency is who we saw as really the ones that would fit that role to bring the expertise in overcoming poverty. The expectation is that the community action agency would partner with an experienced housing developer in case they didn't have housing experience on their own. We once again partnered with Energy Systems Network, or ESN, identified subject matter experts in the areas of poverty alleviation, transportation, built environment, finance and policy, and utility systems. These experts would then work with the developers that we select through the RFQ to help create these innovative housing projects and concepts that would focus on integrating these different components into affordable housing. Respondents did not submit a housing proposal part of the RFQ. Rather, they were asked to submit to us who they were bringing on as the experts. So it was more of a qualification-based, resume-based team presentation as to who they have to put together these projects. And the actual site and type of projects would be determined later, actually through starting off with the workshop. So to highlight the process, on July 8th of 2016, the RFQs, responses to the RFQs were due. Each of the teams were required to provide a resume for who they'd have as the lead person in each of these categories: poverty alleviation, transportation, built environment, finance and policy, and utility systems. Also in your board memo, you'll see we have in here what else they were required to submit, a narrative summary. I won't go through all of these, but this is give you some context as to what we were looking at when we started reviewing the applications or the proposals to see how well they would be able to perform under given this type of specific goal. We received 5 responses that came in on July 8th. What we did is IHCDA assembled a cross-departmental selection committee to determine which 2 we would select to compete in or to participate in Moving Forward 2.0. At the completion of we would select the 2 teams, and I'll tell you who those teams were here shortly. They would then go through the Moving Forward 2.0 workshop where they would have access to these subject matter experts and begin to develop their project plans and concepts. So when we received the applications on July 8th, the timeline that we followed is we had about a month to review the proposals, and then we had presentations on August 15th of 2016. So each of the respondents was allowed to give a 10-minute presentation highlighting their qualifications, and then the review committee would have 5 minutes of questions at the end. And these were public meetings open to the public or to anyone who would like to attend, including other teams that were on the agenda for that day. We went back then as a committee and discussed our recommendations, and then we announced the 2 teams at last year's housing conference, if you recall. So the 2 teams that we selected were Area 4 Agency on Aging, partnering with Real America. The second team was Community Action of Greater Indianapolis, partnering with TWG Development and John Bonner Neighborhood Centers. So once those 2 teams were selected and announced at the housing conference, the next step for them was to go to the Moving Forward 2.0 workshop, which was held November 9th and 10th of 2016. So this is where we brought together the team of subject matter experts to work with the developers and create goals and integrate high-level proposals for development projects that addressed all of the key components. So over the course of the 2-day workshop, the developers were involved in breakout sessions, presentations, and kind of moving from a beginning stage of setting stretch goals and kind of the minimum goals and stretch goals, starting off kind of large brainstorming, but at the end of the second day, actually having high-level proposals and action plans that they presented to the rest of the group, and also some members, some people from the outside of the review committee came in. I think the lieutenant governor at the time was able to attend as well for these presentations to be able to share what they had come up with just over the course of 2 days. So after the workshop, they then got to work as far as putting together the actual proposals. We're continuing to work with the subject matter experts and working towards a goal of applying then for the credits in 2017. So in 2017, November last month, we received the 2 applications requesting credits under the 2016-17 QAP. We went through the due diligence process that we normally go through as far as just making sure that it meets all the threshold requirements, for example, that the proper zoning is in place, that the market studies were showing evidence of demand. There was not a minimum score that they had to meet, but we also wanted to make sure that commitments were being made were appropriate to ensure that the development really was hitting on many of the goals they had set in the workshop. So today, after going through that process, we're recommending the credits for the 2 projects. The 2 projects that are here today, the projects are H38 East Apartments LP, recommending $750,000 in tax credits and a $500,000 development fund loan, and Moving Forward 2.0. So H38 East Apartments is the Area 4 Real America project. Moving Forward 2.0 LP is the project that's being undertaken by KG, TWG, and the John Bonner Center. I know I saw members of the H38 East Apartments development team. I don't know if anyone from TWG or KG or John Bonner is here, but there could be opportunity at the end if you have questions for at least the Lafayette team. I'm sure they'd be happy to help answer those. So before I get to the resolution, let me just give you a brief summary of what these projects are proposing to do. So it's also in your packet, the project funding summary sheet. H38 East Apartments, again, will be in Lafayette, Tippecanoe County. It's going to be a 32-unit family apartment community on the east side of Lafayette. The site was selected due to its close proximity and walkability to many amenities, including Ivy Tech, the new intersection connection YMCA, that will feature education, childcare, healthcare opportunities, and myriad of employment opportunities. So the location is very good in that sense. The project, or the concept came to a point where they really had three overarching goals: to break the cycle of generational poverty, to keep transportation costs under 15% of household income, and to feature a net positive design and produce more power than it uses. So some of the key features that they will integrate will include a minimum net zero design, again, with the stretch goal being net positive, solar PV and battery backup, also partnering with Purdue University, working on their design to be able to go into the emerging building energy technology, energy modeling type design, also doing continuing energy modeling with Purdue. Achieving a HERS level that's a very high efficiency, EPA water sense certificate in rainwater harvesting. They're going to also integrate a phone app for residents to arrange appropriate transportation, integrating multimodal options, promoting walkability and bikeability. They'll also have an electric car sharing program charged by the solar PV panels on site. I believe they're starting off with 6 cars that they will have available to tenants. As far as the poverty alleviation, their Area 4 will have a resident coordinator on site, working with them to make sure that they have access to individual development accounts, also having access to coworker makerspace at close by Ivy Tech, and also an on-site classroom in partnership with the Lafayette Adult Resource Academy and Ivy Tech. So working also to help to build skills. I know that the focus will be manufacturing, developing skills to work manufacturing jobs that are continuing to be added to that region. So the mayor is very supportive of that, fulfilling a kind of a need to help tenants not just have access to affordable housing, but jobs that are going to be stable and provide a good quality of life. So that's the first project. The second one is for the KG John Bonner Center, TLG. For now, they're calling it Moving Forward 2.0. I would suspect they might come up with a different name for the project. I think that's more of a placeholder name until they think of something that further along. So Moving Forward 2.0 will be a 30-unit family apartment community on the east side of Indianapolis. Features a program area and community space. Tenants will have access to programs and services with the John Bonner Center, which is just a 10-minute walk from the property. So some of the key features here include net zero energy efficiency, having a partnership with the neighboring Thomas Gregg Neighborhood School. And that's especially significant. The Thomas Gregg Neighborhood School is right across the street. It's having this development close to it is critical because it fulfills a component of the Housing Stability for School Success Initiative, which is in the Indy East Promise Zone. So it's designed to identify the school as one where the mobility percentage is very high. A lot of the students are finding they're moving quite a bit. A large percentage of the students also are receiving benefits, so indicating that they may be of lower income families. So they certainly recognize that having a foundation of stability within a school is critical, especially as children develop, and hopefully be another component to help them overcome generational poverty. So the partnership with the Thomas Gregg School is especially significant, having it close by and working together so that families that attend the school may have access to this housing. Other features include a greenhouse on site, incorporating multimodal transportation designs and working to integrate with existing transportation options. It's in a good location with regards to a bus stop, bike sharing, and fairly close to Blue Indy stations. Tenants will have access to a financial coach, a career coach, and an income support coach. Installing pedestrian-friendly crosswalk between a development and neighboring school. Tenant-led alumni group to act as mentors to existing tenants. So those are the key features. I know I just threw a lot at you here. Before I read the resolution, I'd be happy to pause here and take any questions you might have.
Any questions for Alan? We're ready for your resolution.
Sure.
And it'll address both projects, correct?
Yes, it will. Okay, staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolutions. Resolve that the board approve an aggregate award of RHTC in an amount not to exceed $1.5 million, and an aggregate amount of development funds in an amount not to exceed $1 million to H38 East Apartments LP and Moving Forward 2.0 LP for the developments referenced in Table C, as more particularly identified in the development summary sheets as recommended by staff.
We have a resolution before us. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. And please welcome Craig Wells to discuss the loan servicing feasibility study and implementation plan. Do we have short titles?
Good morning, Board. If you will, most of you will remember that at our board meeting in September, you approved the release of our request for proposals for this project. We released the RFP. We received responses, and our loan servicing committee, made up of Mark Pascarella, Lisa Ackerberg, and Tom McGowan, vetted the proposals, interviewed the finalists, and selected Frost & Sullivan as their recommendation for this project. With 40 years of consulting experience, offices in over 30 countries, and a client base of over 200,000 in a number of industries, Frost & Sullivan appears to have the expertise and resources needed to deliver insights and recommendations that will be needed to allow us to make the best and most informed decisions related to the future of our loan servicing operations. The proposed fee for this project is $95,000. With some tweaks, we expect this amount to be slightly less than that, specifically with the due to the legal component of that. The reason, again, just as a reminder, why we're undertaking this process is for many, many years we have used U.S. Bank as our loan servicer. U.S. Bank is the only loan servicer that services HFAs other than HFAs themselves. And as other states peel away, we're not sure about the long-term commitment of that service. So as a way to mitigate the potential threat of having to quickly move our loans to a new servicer, and also the opportunity of finding out what the size of potential new revenue streams to the agency would be. This is why we're going through this process, and that's what this consultant will help us to do. So the process will be, we look forward to working with Frost & Sullivan based on, once we get approval from the board, in January. And then we will have a final report from them in mid-March, and then we can take the next steps. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Craig?
Were the costs, the fees competitive?
Yes.
They're all in the same range, okay.
Yes.
Craig, you talked about the breadth and scope of the consultant. What kind of subject matter expertise do they have that will be brought to the analysis? One of the reasons why this was on a list of consultants that I specifically sent out the RFP, I wanted to make sure that they received that, was because they dealt with a lot of financial institution mergers and acquisitions. Yeah. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, we're ready for your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve the engagement of Frost & Sullivan to develop and conduct a feasibility study and implementation plan for IHCDA to service its single-family mortgage loans internally as recommended by staff.
Board, we have a resolution before us. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Craig, and I believe you also will be presenting the Lakes at Crossbridge bond recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. So earlier this morning, you approved the bond volume allocation and the 4% credits for this same project. What I have before you is the approval for the bond resolution for that. And so again, the Lakes at Crossbridge, this is for a bond issuance. It would be a conduit bond, not to exceed $15.5 million. And I'm going to steal Mark's thunder to say that these bonds are backed solely by the revenues derived from the development and will not constitute a debt, liability, or obligation of the authority of the state of Indiana.
We have a resolution.
Pretty good. You got me down.
We have a resolution before us. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you,
very much.
Craig. And please welcome Rihanna Binder to provide a hardest hit fund blight elimination program update.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm here today with our 2017 Blight Elimination Program update. Which hopefully we will be providing for you momentarily via PowerPoint. No.
Can you all see over here?
Right.
Oh, you've got it. Follow it? Okay.
All right. Indiana's Hardest Hit Fund has been working through the Blight Elimination Program since its initial awards in May of 2014. At this time, we have allocated approximately $68 million through our 6 funding divisions throughout the state. Yes, I am. We did list the divisions there. Divisions are divided by population, if you'll remember. So our Division 1 was the largest 2 counties in the state, both Marion and Lake County, where we stand today. Our recipients in Lake County include, of course, Hammond, Gary, and East Chicago. Our recipients in Marion County include both Indianapolis and Lawrence. As you go down through the divisions, the population of the individual counties does get smaller, and any municipality would apply to the division where their county was located. So even though you have a fairly large municipality located in a county with a smaller population, they would still apply to the corresponding division. I have included a BEP process flowchart. I will briefly just touch on the highlights for you. Once BEP awards are made, our communities do have a public notice and hearing process that they go through where any community member has the chance to come forward and speak out on the properties to be included in the Blight Elimination Program. We do go through a historic review process. It is not a Section 106 process. We do use Indiana Landmarks, which is a private 501c3. We've actually given them a little bit of a greater leeway than you would have under Section 106. They can also comment on things that have architectural integrity, whether they are located within a historic district or not. All of the BEP properties do have to go through a voluntary acquisition. We do include tax sale in that process because that is not an IHCDA administered process. So our participants can purchase properties at county-run tax sales. After acquisition is complete, whether that acquisition be through purchase, donation, tax sale, or another method, they do a series of required inspections taken from the EPA's best practices and standards. At that time, they do bid out their contracts. They are publicly bid contracts that go out through the Board of Public Works or various boards for our communities. Once the contract is awarded, the communities do a sample demolition overseen by Beam Longest and Neff, which is IHCDA's retained engineering firm for BEP, to make sure that they are complying with our technical specifications that were developed in cooperation with EPA. Once the sample demolition is complete, the community may, at their convenience, open demolition on the remainder of the bid package by issuing a notice to proceed, and then move down to claim submission. All of our BEP properties are required to be greened. That is the minimum end use per the United States Department of Treasury. So they must be a flat green area with growing grass. We do have a few communities that did elect to use clover. If you're not familiar, clover grows to be about 4 inches tall. It returns nitrates to the soil, attracts honeybees, and also provides a number of other beneficial uses in hopes that our communities are able to return those spaces to a beneficial use overall. With regard to BEP progress, I am pleased to announce 59 cities and towns throughout the state of Indiana have undertaken BEP demolitions. We've completed over 2,000 demolitions statewide since 2014. We have reimbursed through IHCDA online exactly 2,011 demolitions. And 65% of our original awarded structures are down and complete. We have utilized just over $30 million in funding as of December 12th. And I am pleased to say that we have completed 65% of our demolitions using less than 45% of the allocated funding. 17 of our communities, of the original 54 that were awarded, have completed their BEP projects. BEP staff have completed 9 community audits. I often jokingly say we might be the friendliest audit team that goes out. We've actually found money for 2 communities that they had not claimed. So that was kind of a unique audit process to go out and actually find funds for communities. We have 8 audits that will be completed. The field work is done. We're doing the reports prior to the end of the year. And we have 161 properties that have been released through the BEP through either sale, donation, or transfer. Our staff have also conducted greening inspections in 53 communities. These are where we visit completed BEP demolition sites to make sure that the site is being maintained, grass is being mowed, it's free of trash and debris, or if there's a different end use that the community is maintaining that end use, whether it be a community garden, park space, etc. We have 43 communities that will be moving forward into 2018, which is the last year for blight elimination. And then I've just got a sample for you here of some of the end uses. What you see here is the very first home that was demolished in BEP. This property is located at 906 North Bevel. The prior slide shows the inside of the property. Just prior to demolition, it had been stripped absolutely bare. There was 2x4s and some plywood. What you see there now is the new home that stands on that site that has been sold. There's been a family occupying that home for over a year and a half, contributing to that community and also the tax base in the St. Clair Place area. We are also working with NEAR through Renew Indy and the BEP. If you have heard about the new East Side Teachers Village, one at least, if not more, BEP lots will be contributing to new home structures in the Teachers Village. Other communities have explored a wide variety of end uses. Brazil and Elwood have included BEP lots in successful tax credit applications approved by the IHCDA board. Rising Sun, Indiana has completed its BEP project and commenced construction on BEP lots of new updated senior housing. And then House of Ruth in Connorsville, Indiana has taken 3 BEP lots where they will be providing expanded services for women transitioning from dependent living to independent living due to substance and opioid addiction. And then Lawrence, Indiana has already constructed, built, dedicated, and completed 2 new Habitat homes on BEP lots. Property closeout is something that we have not previously updated the board on. Just to give you a brief example, we allowed communities to take their total BEP award. So if they received an award of $100,000 to do 4 homes, and they were able to complete those homes for $75,000, that remaining $25,000 would stay in that community and could be used for additional qualifying homes that they would submit to IHCDA for approval. Richmond was one of the first communities to do closeouts, and they have submitted over $750,000 in closeout funds between 2 funding rounds. They have added 32 homes to their BEP project with their initial award allocation, and that's an increase of over 23% of their overall project. Warwick County has also submitted almost $200,000 in closeout funds and has had an 11% increase in their BEP project. So we're extremely proud of those communities and the steps they have taken to contain and control costs to make sure their dollars went further in their communities. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Brianna? Thank you. Appreciate it. Mark Pasquarella will be presenting the 2018 General Fund Operating Budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we get started, I believe everybody has a packet the request of some people to make it larger so people actually read it. So I appreciate that as my age is going up, not down, unfortunately. So we'll turn to the first page before we actually obviously read any resolution. And we'll start with the comparison of the 2017 budget versus the 2018 budget. Before we do get started, this strips out the programs, and this is just focuses on the IHCDA general fund. This decision was made, Jake, I'm not sure, probably like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yes, to separate out the program budgets versus the general operating budget of IHCDA, which is, so we did that about 3 or 4 years ago to make it cleaner for us to understand the real operation expenses of the agency and the revenue that the agency receives.
Yeah.
Yes.
So hence it has made it cleaner. I think in the past 3 or 4 years it's gone very well to be able to explain it. So,
Mark, if I can add too, we also passed out, just to give you a high-level overview of the programs, you have a one-pager here that kind of describes or lays out the dollar amounts of each of IHCDA's federal programs that we administer. And then next month what we'll do, and I think we do this once or twice a year, we give you a handout of about 9 pages that describes each one of these programs in more detail. But this just gives you a high-level overview of the program dollars that IHCDA administers, which is not part of the general operating budget. Yeah.
in looking at the comparison of the budgets, we'll start with revenues. You see revenues increasing, and then a breakdown, of course, of the investments, fees, and other incomes. You can see that a lot of the investments is coming from the single family. Also, we'll mention the new program here at the bottom, but if you move to operating expenses, you're going to see some variability. And frankly, this is one thing that Lisa and I, who are on the budget committee, talked with IHCDA about, with management in the room. We asked all the questions. We got answers, I think, that were very satisfactory. And one thing that I liked is as they went through the budget, they actually had a thoughtful process on what the budget was going to be compared to last year's, as opposed to the traditional, what many people hear, just add 2% or add 4% to what happened last year. And I think that's key. Now, of course, it makes it a little bit more volatile and you'll see some swings, but the reality of it is I think it makes it more realistic and it makes it more efficient when Lisa and I are going through it. So you will see some differences. For instance, travel, meetings, and training is increased. I don't think there's an issue with that. I think, in fact, it's very good for us to be investing in our people. Also, you'll see that printing and copying and outreach has risen just due to the marketing outreach that we're doing for home ownership. That has proven to be very successful as far as fee income coming in, and that income that comes from that program goes to the general fund. You do see that the operating expenses are increasing, and it's something that we do look at. However, we've also done in the past, and you'll see this when we compare the 2007 budget to the 2017, or the 2017 budget to the 2017 results. IHCDA has a good job of coming in under what the expenses were totaled. The one thing that I think that's kind of going to pop up is that Jake had mentioned at the end of the board meeting, let's say 3 board meetings ago, 2 or 3, about having some initiatives that IHCDA would take on, being more proactive as opposed to just being reactive and trying to survive. Considering the past that IHCDA has done a good job in controlling their expenses, spending money where they need to spend it, I think the initiative was thought to let's carve out $4 million and then be able to fund a program that's going to bring veterans and provide housing for veterans here over the next several years. Now, out of that $4 million, only $600,000 will hit next year's budget as they ramp up, so you'll not see a one-time charge. But I think this initiative, again, is good. We're seeing surpluses, and therefore, let's turn that money back into the community. So we had no problem. The question that obviously Lisa and I asked was if we're going to do these initiatives, do we have the money for it? And I think IHCDA was able to demonstrate that they do have the money for it. If we move to the professional services detail, I just really not going to get into too much in this because there's really not much there I think that needs to be mentioned unless you have questions. However, you will see that the loan servicing feasibility study is there. And also, you'll see that they do possibly look at moving floors within the same building that we currently occupy, and so there are some expenses made for that. Those will not be recurring, though. The revenues page, we've already kind of gone over at the beginning, so what I really want to do is focus on the comparison of 2017 actuals versus the 2017 budget. Again, as we look through this, you're going to see that same type of variability I was talking about within the budget. And so you're going to see some big swings, you're going to see some big percentage changes. But again, as we went through the discussions, you know, there were some where they spent more, there were good reasons for why they spent more. There were also a lot where they spent less, and they explained why they spent less. One that I particularly like is the IT software, of them looking at it and saying, do we need to do this program? If we're not ready for it, should we push it off into the next year? And they've done so. So you see a big reduction there right now, but you're going to see an increase for this year, especially as they do a new budgeting software that they're going to purchase. Again, that's a good idea, because the last thing we want is IHCDA just going through their budget saying we need to spend this money, spending it. It doesn't really add a lot of value. In the end, it ends up wasted. So as you go through that, you will see, you know, salaries were down. Just there's some unfilled positions that they're currently filling. Lisa and I also asked the question, are we having a problem with turnover? We were able to get a very good answer, and what we liked hearing is that there's nothing out of the ordinary for state employment. So therefore, they're going through the natural process of trying to replace attrition. So hence why you saw that down. Travels and meetings, again, they just did not seem to be utilizing them. Jake seemed to be really focused on only spending for the training and sending people places if it was needed, and we were going to get a return on that, which I think is very good, so that way we don't have to worry about state employees, or state agency employees, I should say, being sent on any type of boondoggles where it's just wasting taxpayer, or in this case, federal funds. Rent, there's no disaster recovery that they had initially planned for, so hence why you see a major turn there. And I keep looking at supplies, printing, copying, and postage. I know they're telling me they're being more efficient, but I can't help but think that today's world with email and to be able to deliver documents and internet, that we're seeing that cost go down across the board. I mentioned the equipment and software expenses. You know, we obviously want to make sure we don't shortchange that, because in today's world we need to make sure we're spending on that. I don't think, or we did not get the sense that IHCDA was withholding that. They're just trying to deploy it in the correct manner. So I don't think we have a problem with that. The budgeting software that is going to go in this year, I think, is needed. Not only do I think it will help with accuracy, it'll be quicker, which means you'll be more efficient, and you'll be able to free up their staff time to be able to work on other ideas. And again, something like budgetary software is a good expense to spend on. As you go through, there's obviously some other ones. Happy to answer any questions. And then, the net result really in the end is that IHCDA is in a good financial situation. And I believe I said this last year, but we say it every year, even when we talk about state finances. Because we are conservative, because we manage our money well, we are in a situation where we are operating at a surplus. And of course, that allows us to do such things as new initiatives for the veterans housing. It allows us also, if there's going to be any issues or problems that are coming on the horizon, one of which was tax reform. Now the PABs made it through the final version, so we're not going to be affected by it, from my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jake.
You're correct. Yes.
Good. So that's a good news, but had that happen, IHCDA would have had to make some changes on how it conducts business. So I like being in the situation we're at, where we have the ability to, again, either play defense if we have to, or play offense. And obviously, when we're in a situation where we can help veterans come to the state of Indiana, find employment and housing, and no one's going to argue with that. So I think it's a great initiative to follow. With that being said, I would be more than happy to take any questions. I believe staff is on hand as well, if they have any questions that I cannot answer.
Any questions, board? A lot of information to digest.
I did throw a lot at it.
But thank you for serving and representing us, and
Absolutely, my pleasure.
very important. I believe we're ready for your resolution.
Resolved that the board approves the proposed 2018 budget attached hereto as Exhibit A, as recommended by staff. And if I remember correctly, I believe with me reading it, that counts as a move for approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. And please welcome Jacob Saib, our Executive Director, for his report.
Okay, well, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick updates for the board. Last board meeting, I mentioned how we have been waiting for about 5 years for HUD to issue a release for how they're going to contract for the performance-based contract administration, which IHCDA administers for the state. These are rental assistance that we have that IHCDA administers in partnership with a firm called Quadell. A couple weeks ago, they released a draft RFP, and that is currently being reviewed, and we have on January 2nd an opportunity to provide some feedback, which we plan to do. I mentioned how they were moving away from allocating the contracts specifically by state, and that they would be going to a regional model, and which in the draft they do that. And that includes the sub-region that we are in is with Illinois. And so we are in conversations with the Illinois Housing Development Authority. Me and the director, Audra, are having conversations about who would be the lead applicant on that.
I think we know, don't we?
I think it will be us, yes. So we're working on that process right now. It is a draft, but once the draft and they take the comments, we are expecting sometime within the first quarter of 2008 for them to release that RFP. And so we're continuing to monitor that situation. Another sub-region of the Midwest is Ohio, and you may ask, why am I bringing this up? And the reason why I'm bringing it up is I want to make you aware that the state of Ohio has reached out to Indiana to say there's a possibility of a possible partnership for us to bid on that one as well. And the reason why they want to do that is because it's very similar to the partnership that we would have with the state of Illinois, which is IHCDA being the lead. Currently, the Illinois Housing Development Authority does not have the PBCA contract. That is done by a separate entity in the southern part of the country. So we would be competing with a non-state HFA for this region that we're currently in. Ohio is in a very similar situation. The Ohio Housing Finance Authority does not administer the PBCA. It is done by a separate entity within their state. And so a potential partnership between the state HFAs is being considered. We're just having some high-level dialogue on that piece, but I wanted to make you aware of it. In terms of revenue, what it means for IHCDA, in the revenue projections, we do have a contract that goes through the end of December 2018, and that is about $1 million of revenue that the IHCDA receives. So if we do lose the contract, it will have a significant impact on the budget for 2019. That's the reason why we're really looking to have that partnership with obviously to respond to the RFP when HUD releases it, and having that partnership with the Illinois Housing Development Authority, and considering an opportunity to support the Ohio Housing Finance Authority, because we do believe that the best contractor for the PBCA is a state housing finance agency, and so we want to be supportive of that spirit, and that's the reason why we're just having those conversations with them. So, but anyway, I just want to give you an update, and as we learn more about that, I'll keep you up to date on where we end up with that, and when we have an opportunity to respond to the RFP that HUD will release. So. In February, we awarded credits, and as part of that, the board approved putting about 5 properties on a wait list that we had applications for, and just in case we had some additional credits that we could allocate those credits, and the board gave the authority to the staff to make that award if those credits became available. We did have some credits available. And so we went down the list. We had the first development. We approached them and asked them about would they be able to make it work with the limited number of credits that we had available. They were not. They responded they were not. We went to the second applicant. They would have had to decrease the number of units and the whole design. They also were not able to adjust and to accept. But the third development, Black Hawk Commons, which is located in Sheridan, Indiana, in Hamilton County, was able to make their development work within the scoring criteria that they had committed to IHCDA. So we did award $630,000 in credits to Sheridan development called Blackhawk Commons. We also awarded them $800,000 in development fund, which was within the policy that we had approved as well. So wanted to make you aware of that. That means that we had about 35,000 in credits that we're carrying over into 2018 that we'll make available currently with the applications that we have in right now. So
And what kind of development is that?
Blackhawk Commons, it's a Alan, do you know, is it a senior or is it a family development? Or Peter, do you remember?
I know it's adapted to reuse of a former school building.
Okay.
Whether it's age restricted, I do not recall.
Okay. I can get that information for you and give you a summary sheet of, I'll provide a summary sheet to the board with the information related to the development. It's 32 units is the number of units that they're producing, so.
Thank you.
Yes. Also, in February, the board approved IHCDA to use development fund to shore up some of the deals up to $300,000 per development based on the uncertainty of tax reform, which caused some issues with tax investors and which caused some of the pricing to drop. And what we will do at the next board meeting is to give you a full update on those awards that we were able to make, because that policy expires on December 31st with the developments that we awarded back in February. So in January, we'll give you a full update on the additional awards that we're able to make to fill some gaps, additional gaps because of pricing issues on those deals. So a couple other things real quick. The Hardest Hit Fund, which IHCDA administers, and Ray did a really nice job with articulating the success of the Blight Elimination Program. That program is continually always being audited. We have a third-party auditor, CPA firm. We get audited by the U.S. Department of Treasury. We get audited by our single audit. And we also have an inspector general who audits the program. We were made aware that that they had a couple of questions on a recent audit that they had completed, and so we responded to that. And right now we're just waiting to get information back from the U.S. Department of Treasury. We have not received any information on that one, so I just want to make you aware of kind of where that status is, and I'll keep you updated if once we hear back from the Treasury on that, on a couple of items that they had about the Hardest Hit Fund. So pretty much that's my wrap up on the executive update. The next board meeting is on January 25th. It will be at IHCDA. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And I just want to thank you for making 2017 a successful year for IHCDA and the impact that we're having across the state, on not only on housing in our communities, but also on people's lives. Thank you for sharing that great story. We hear so many stories like that, and I think I just want to say thank you for coming, because I know it really does mean a lot to the staff and IHCDA to know that we're impacting positively impacting people's lives. So thank you, board, for supporting the work that IHCDA does. So, okay.
Any questions with the tax reform package?
Sure.
How does that impact?
So there was some concerns with what was being proposed with tax reform. Primarily, the major concern that we were really focused in on, which Mark mentioned, was the proposal to eliminate the private activity bond volume for the state. And IHCDA administers private activity bonds for multifamily, which we awarded today, but also for a single family. And if those were to go away, it would have had a significant impact on our ability to continue to produce affordable housing, such as Silver Birch, because the Silver Birch was financed with private activity bonds and the tax credits. And so both of those would have gone away. They're called 4% credits. The 9% credits certainly were preserved, weren't not part of the conversation. But as of what we are seeing from both House and Senate, which have been passed versions, is that the private activity bonds will be preserved, and so that's good news for us. In the budget, we were conservative in our revenues because there was a lot of uncertainty in how that would impact the agency. So we were a little bit more conservative on our revenues because we weren't real sure where we were going to go with that. But the good news is that the private activity bonds, which means production for multifamily and single family, is preserved and will continue to operate those programs. So.
Any questions for the board? Any comments at our last meeting of the year? Thank you for the job that you and your agency do. We appreciate it. And if there's no further business to come before this board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We stand adjourned. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and
Same to you.
happy and healthy holidays.